You ever get the feeling you're doing everything right, but it's still not working? You studied, you got a decent job, you're putting in 40, 50, maybe even 60 hours a week. You try to stash some money away, you try to budget, but when you look at your bank account at the end of the month, you're left wondering, where did it all go? It feels like you're on a treadmill that's constantly speeding up, and you can't help but feel like you're falling behind. If this sounds familiar, it's not just in your head, and it's probably not your fault. This feeling of being stuck, of being broke no matter how hard you try, isn't some kind of personal failure. It's a systemic one. A recent survey found that the majority of Americans, 77%, do not feel financially secure, an increase from 75% in 2024 and 72% in 2023. What's even more worrying is the growing number of people who feel like they'll never be financially secure. That number jumped from 26% in 2023 to 32% in mid-2025. So what is going on? Why does it feel like the goalposts for a stable life are being shoved further and further away? Let's break down the real economic forces that are practically engineered to keep you feeling this way. First things first, let's talk about your paycheck. For generations, the deal was simple. Work hard, get paid, build a better life. But for millions, that promise has broken down. The story we've been sold about wages is, in many ways, an illusion. Sure, you'll see headlines and politicians brag that wages have outpaced inflation recently. Between April 2024 and April 2025, for example, nominal wages, the number on your paycheck, increased by 4.1%, while inflation sat at 2.3%. Sounds good, right? But that snapshot hides a much harsher truth. When you look at real wages, your income after accounting for rising costs, the picture changes. Since March 2006, nominal weekly wages rose over 78%, but real wages only went up about 12%. That gap explains why even a raise can feel like a pay cut. And this isn't new. For decades, worker productivity has skyrocketed. The value we produce per hour is at record highs. But pay for the people doing the work? It's barely moved. That's wage stagnation. All that extra value, all the new wealth, has flowed to the top. You're doing more, producing more, and getting less. The mental toll of this is huge. It fuels a scarcity mindset, where your brain becomes laser-focused on just making it through the day. Long-term planning, solving big problems, or chasing new opportunities, those fall by the wayside. It's not that you're bad with money, it's that chronic financial stress rewires your brain, keeping you stuck in survival mode. At the same time your paycheck is stretched thin, the cost of just existing has exploded. The three pillars of a stable life, housing, healthcare, and education, have shifted from achievable goals to something that feels more like a luxury. Start with housing. The dream of homeownership, once the foundation of the American middle class, is now out of reach for millions. From May 2019 to May 2024, the price per square foot of a typical home jumped over 52%. By early 2025, you need an annual income of around $117,000 just to afford a median-priced home. Renters aren't faring better. In 2023, nearly half spent 30% or more of their income on rent. A quarter were severely burdened, spending over half. This pressure has helped drive a 12% spike in homelessness, the highest level ever recorded. Healthcare isn't any better. Costs are so inflated that a single medical emergency remains one of the top causes of financial collapse. It's a constant fear. One diagnosis, one accident, and your life savings vanish. Then there's education. Once the ticket to upward mobility, it now saddles young people with massive debt before they even get started. Student loan debt in the U.S. has ballooned to nearly $1.8 trillion. That number represents a generation forced to delay home ownership, marriage, and retirement, not because they're irresponsible, but because they're buried before they've begun. Add it all up, and any small raise you manage to earn is wiped out. Your buying power is shrinking year after year. You feel poor not because you're failing, but because the cost of a stable life keeps moving further out of reach. When wages can't keep up with the soaring cost of living, what happens? People turn to debt, and the system is more than happy to hand it out. As of early 2025, total U.S. household debt hit a record $18.2 trillion. And it's not just mortgages. We're seeing a dangerous spike in high-interest debt that can wreck your life. Credit card balances alone reached $1.18 trillion. And it's not for luxury purchases. People are using them for groceries, gas, and utilities. Then the interest kicks in, becoming yet another bill you can barely manage. Miss a payment, and the penalties hit. Plus a lower credit score, making future borrowing even more expensive. It's a downward spiral designed to keep you paying. The mental toll is massive. There's a well-documented link between this kind of debt and higher rates of depression and anxiety. Just the feeling of owing can be more damaging than the amount itself. It's a modern form of indentured servitude. You're not working to get ahead, you're working just to stay afloat. This isn't a sign of poor financial discipline. It's a symptom of a system where wages lag and costs explode. For millions, debt isn't a bad decision. It's the only option left. The last piece of the puzzle is the massive, systemic inequality baked into our economy. If you feel like the game is rigged, you're not being paranoid. You're just looking at the numbers. In the U.S., the top 10% of households hold about 67% of the nation's wealth. Meanwhile, the bottom 50%, half the country, holds just 2.5%. Let that sink in. Half the population is scraping over a tiny sliver of the pie, and the gap keeps growing. This isn't just about money, it's about something called relative deprivation. How poor we feel often depends on who we compare ourselves to. And in the age of social media, where we're constantly bombarded with the lavish lives of the ultra-rich, that feeling of falling behind gets amplified. It breeds resentment, hopelessness, and the toxic belief that being poor is somehow your fault. What makes it worse? The safety nets meant to catch you have been systematically torn apart. Public assistance has been gutted, healthcare is a mess, and unemployment benefits barely cover the basics. That leaves people dangerously exposed. One car repair, one layoff, one medical bill, and a family can spiral into poverty. The floor that was supposed to protect you, it's gone. Now you're walking a tightrope with no net below. If this hits home, hit subscribe. We break down how the financial system really works, so you can stop playing defense and start playing smart. So, why do you feel poor? It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're bad with money. It's because you're playing a game where the rules were written by someone else, to benefit someone else. You feel poor because wages have been kept down while the cost of living explodes. Because you've been pushed into a debt trap that enriches banks and keeps you stuck. And because you're living in one of the most unequal societies in modern history, where the safety net is so shredded it barely catches anyone. Realizing this is the first step. Redirecting frustration from yourself to the systems causing it isn't about excuses. It's about reclaiming power. It frees the mental energy wasted on shame and lets you focus on what you can control. Building financial knowledge, finding community, and demanding change. The feeling of being poor is a heavy weight, designed to make you feel isolated and powerless. But when you understand what's really going on, that weight starts to lift. You're not alone. And once you're armed with knowledge, you're no longer a pawn in the system. You're a player who can start making smarter moves for yourself. Remember that treadmill that keeps speeding up? You didn't build it, but now you know how to step off and start walking your own path. Thanks for watching. Here's another video I think you'll enjoy. It digs even deeper into the financial playbook of the elite,